Today might be one of the more casual of the sermons I've given because to me it just seemed so glaring at me when I read this parable at this time in the life of our church. And I've explained a great deal of it already, or at least of what I believe God or Jesus is saying through this parable to our church today. There's not a lot to say about the history of when this occurred. Jesus taught in parables, we know that. He did that often. We're told here in the scripture that he would explain what needed to be explained to his disciples in private, but that also leads me to believe that in public he let the parables go as they might be understood by the people that heard them, perhaps differently by each person. So this is what this parable means to me at this time, because it has become so very obvious to me in the life of our church. And I'm honestly very excited by that. We know that here Jesus is talking about how we bring the kingdom of God, or what is now being called the reign of God here on earth. How is it that we are supposed to do that? What is that like? And then Jesus gives us this parable of the mustard seed, the parable of the growing seed right before that. He's not talking about how to provide food for each other as in physical food, but he's talking about spiritual food. He's talking about visions. And the thing about visions is that they're not plans and they're not dreams. Visions come to us from another place. Dreams come to us from our own wishes. Plans are things we lay out and make a process for, and we decide exactly how and when it will happen. And dreams and plans are good things, but visions, especially visions from a biblical perspective, from a spiritual perspective, are so much better than both of them. They come to us because we have opened up room in our hearts for God to plant them inside of us, without even knowing exactly how or when they will occur. They're often very scary. If you've ever received a vision, and I don't mean something you might see like Moses in the burning bush, I mean a feeling at times, which is how I often get them, or an idea, or something is planted in me from something someone else said, often in this congregation, and then it grows into this giant thing. Last week you heard me talk about how Sarah Barra planted a seed inside my head, and she doesn't want to take credit for that, but she did. And it was a very small idea that she gave me, and I have blown it up in my head into this vision of a very neat thing that I think could change the life of this church. I'm not explaining it fully to everyone yet because we have some other seeds to plant in that. And maybe the seed won't grow, but this is how they occur. What I'm grateful for most is that I see in the church world, I've read reports, I look at studies, I see statistics, I go to other church services, I meet with other pastors a lot, and the thing that most churches lack these days is not attendance, and it's not even money, though they're both needed to help these visions. But the churches that are truly dying, the churches that really have no chance other than maybe to exist for as long as their bank accounts might let them, are those who are bankrupt in vision and mission. We are abundantly blessed with both of them. We may not always have the attendance we want. We may not always have the offering collected we want. But I have never seen or been a part of an organization with so much vision floating around as I have seen and hear here. Constantly people are sharing ideas with me, or we are in discussions about those things. Some of them will happen and some won't, and that's okay. But you have to have these visions, or else you just stop. When your body stops, you die. Your body, when it's alive, is constantly changing, constantly. No matter how old you are, your body changes. The body of Christ does the same thing as well. It's a law of nature. You have to do that, or else you're no longer alive. We might have been short at times in our church's life on mission, depending on how you look at that, and that's really not a big deal. Lots of churches have. We're not now, and that's thanks to you, to the people of this church. In any given week, somebody's picking up Appalachian trail hikers, or taking them somewhere to eat, or giving them extra food that they didn't expect, or collecting something for someone, all here in our church, whether it's Bethany Children's Home or Servants to All, or going on a mission trip to help strangers who all of a sudden look like our sisters when we meet them. I can tell you that I saw Janae become like a sister, especially to Tracy. I saw Tracy become like a sister to everybody she came across that week. Don't mean to throw you out there like that, but yeah, it was really impressive to see, and Sarah as well, and our children as well. I will tell you that this church is not short of mission, and that the kids are hearing it because Julia is 5 years old, we're sitting in the car waiting on her mom for something to go somewhere. I forget where we were leaving for, probably, I think, the first day of the mission trip, to go to our first project. And Julia and I were talking. I asked her something about what we were doing, and she said, well, yeah, some people need help, and we help them because we're people too. She figured out on the very first morning what the camp director, Reverend Phil Hardy, didn't say until Thursday night's campfire. Phil has a problem sometimes with using the word charity. I don't have the same problem, but I understand where Phil's coming from. Phil is careful not to use the word charity a lot in these things because he thinks in people's minds, and he might very well be correct, that charity sets up some sort of relationship where one is above the other, and they can't possibly make it without our help. Phil likes to stay away from that mindset. He taught us, and he was right in teaching us, that we did not help these people because they couldn't make it without us, or somehow we're better off than them. We help them because they are children of God. Because we are children of God, and therefore they are our brothers and sisters, and we live in an equal relationship with them. Their hospitality to us when we came to their homes showed that to me. We were nervous. We didn't meet Violet until the second day. Some of our group were almost afraid to meet a new person. They were more than happy to build her a ramp, but a little bit afraid to meet her. And then when they did, it all changed. I didn't meet Violet until about 20 minutes before we were leaving her home, and I will never forget her and her gratitude and her glow, really, to be in this new place, in her property, her home for many years. We didn't do these things because we're better off. We did them because we are no better off. We did them because Phil asked us the question at the beginning of the week, what if you are a child of God? It seems so simple and maybe even silly because many of us assume, of course, we are a child of God. But think about that for a second and what that might do to the visions you have of others. What if you really are a child of God? Then that makes the person next to you and the person 500 miles away from you a child of God as well. And therefore, we are all members of the same family. We are all brothers and sisters, no matter what country, no matter what state, no matter what religion. We don't help them because we are above them. We help them because we are with them. Visions, again, are different from plans or even dreams. When you see these handicap ramps built, you think of, well, you have to lay out a plan, and then things just happen in the middle of it. Something doesn't go quite right, and someone has a vision on how to fix it. But even better, someone has a vision on how to do more handicap ramps. This gentleman we worked with, and I was going to hold off on sharing too much about our trip till another week. His name is Earl Bays. Earl is a friend of Phil's, used to be a member of his congregation in North Carolina, in Burlington, North Carolina, as a matter of fact. Earl and Phil were part of an initiative that they actually left their church and formed a new church over a controversy many years ago. It's called Life's Journey United Church of Christ, and they are a wonderful congregation. I asked Earl, how many ramps have you built? I think that was on Wednesday night as we were sitting on the porch talking. I thought that Earl was going to say, 20, 25, something like that. Earl has built 365 handicap ramps, including the one we just built. He's in his 50s. Earl had a vision many years ago of a way to help people, of a way to organize a crew at his church of people, not just men, but men and women, and how to work with them. And I have never seen a person have the patience this man has when someone cuts a length of board too short, or has to go cut it 3 times to make it shorter, or whatever else might go wrong on a project. Earl really was the only one that knew what to do, and we all kind of stood around watching him work, waiting on him telling us what to do next until we learned a little bit along the way. He had this vision, and he uses his vacation time every summer to go do this with his church, and if he's not at Johns River Valley, he's at another camp doing the same thing. His wife gives up her minivan. Earl loads it full of all the tools he has and a whole ton of patience, and goes off to help his brothers and sisters, all because he had a vision to do this. I know that just in the county we were in, one agency has a list of about 35 other handicap ramps to be built in that county, so I'm pretty sure if we go back next year, we're going to be building more handicap ramps, and we might even do it faster this time because we know how to do it. Visions lead children to keeping a family together when others want to separate it for whatever reasons that may be. Visions are seeds, but they have to be watered, they have to be spread, they have to be shared. The rest of it God takes care of, and again, some of them will not grow. But you have to till the soil. You have to prepare room for that to grow. And as I said, there is so much of that going on here. We are the most blessed church I really honestly can think of in that area. And that gives us a leg up on everything else. Money will not be an issue if we think of ways to deal with it in different ways. Revenue will not be an issue if we get creative and think of ways to build revenue, or to talk to people about tithing, or to use our space in a more efficient, more productive way. Lots of those things are happening in churches around us, maybe not immediately around us, but in other places, and we are cluing into those and coming up with our own new ways. You get visions when you surrender your plans, and when you surrender your dreams to God. As long as your plans or your dreams are at the forefront, you haven't tilled the soil of your soul for God to make room for His visions. This is what we must do, this is what we are doing, and this is part of what Jesus is talking about. They are the biggest shortfalls of churches today: vision and mission. Our church just took what is in my lifetime our very first mission trip. All year long we do missions within this community. We are not short on mission, and it's only going to grow from here. And the crazy ideas that float around this place are amazing. And yeah, some of them are crazy. Some of them are even supernatural. But that's who we are. We're a crazy kind of faith. Nothing in science tells us to believe that a man was raised from the dead after 3 days in the tomb, and yet we do. It should not be so crazy to think that some of the visions that are floating around this place might happen if we just give them a place to be planted. So this is not a scary sermon. This is not something where I stand up here and say we need more of this and we're all going to die if we don't do it. This is a sermon where I am so grateful to be in this place. I am so grateful that we are abundantly blessed with visions and mission. And I think that our harvest may look different one day than what we could ever imagine. It may not even be a harvest that includes the things we think of. But it will come as long as we continue to till the soil of our souls and make room for God's visions. Amen.